We tried to crank the car for several hours. We have good voltage, we have a good setup. I was unable to use the factory map. Instead, I had to run a hose here that runs to the ECU, which is where that blue hose goes in. And the car, the engine's turning over. I know I have a good ground on each cylinder because I'm getting fire on both sides. Now, after you crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it, nothing happens. You get a lot of black exhaust out of this side, and out of this side you'll get nothing. Now, if you give it some accelerator, it'll try to start, but it sounds like a really bad 4-cylinder or a 2-stroke, like a weed eater trying to crank up. It doesn't sound good at all. So I'm very confident my cam is proper. I'm not confident though on a lot of things. Are all my injectors firing? Are all the coils working? So we're going to perform some tests today. The first thing, I had bought a a plug tester this morning, and I already can't find it. So I think I left it in my wife's car. But the first thing we're going to do, since she went to town, is we're going to do a compression test. I have the tester hooked up to cylinder 2 here. We have the injectors disconnected, and we have the coils disconnected on both sides. We're just going to turn the engine over, and we're going to record all of our compression on all 8 cylinders and then go from there. But we're basically going to test for spark on all 8 cylinders, and if we're good there, then we have to make sure that our injectors are right. So the actual leads on each one are labeled 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3, 5, 7. So everything seems fine there, unless they're wired wrong at the connector somewhere, which I've heard of this happening before. So we're just going to have to hunt down the problem and figure out what's wrong. I think mechanically, well, once I check compression, I'll know mechanically if everything's fine. Then the problem's either going to lie in my injectors or my coils or a combination. But yesterday, after I cranked it, we were hot to the touch on all 4 cylinders there, but only on number 1 here. 3, 5, and 7 were cold. So if it was just completely one bank, I would say, hey, we may have lost a ground to the coils, which who knows at this point, who knows. And all of this factory wire in here is extremely stiff and brittle feeling. So we're gonna go through some tests and see what we got. All right, so I just did the compression test on all 8 cylinders. This is not a time of happiness, I guess. Either I got some bad rings, maybe, or what I think is my valves aren't closing all the way. I did notice whenever I changed out the valve springs, a lot of these valves, and even if you looked in the ports, exhaust and intake ports, some of these valves look really gunked up. If you look at the cylinders 1 through 8, the compression was 160, 185, 170, 185, 75, 145, 160, 155. So if you exclude cylinder 5, the min and max of the other 7 range from 145 to 185. That's 40 psi. I haven't looked up yet what's acceptable on an LS engine, but I know like on a Honda you're allowed like 20 psi max between cylinders. This is double that. And we have that random one that's at 75. So I guess what's going to happen is I'm going to have to probably pull the heads off and pull the valves out, have them reconditioned, cleaned, or replaced or something, and check all that stuff out. I have this tool right here, spark plug tester. We're going to set the gap to match the plugs, put on a wire, and try to test each cylinder one by one, starting with the driver bank, because that is the side where I had 3 cold header runners. And we're going to see if we have spark or not. All right, so it's the next day. We're gonna try to get a little spark going here. So I went ahead and reconnected both banks of spark plugs. And the reason I did that, and I left the fuel unplugged here. The reason I did that, so in electronics, sometimes if you have like a particular impedance load that your computer is firing against, it's firing and it needs a resistive load so that it doesn't foul out. So it's not going to start because there's no fuel, but I didn't want to mess up the coils. I didn't know how that computer system would work, so I just went ahead and re-terminated everything. Plug number 1 right here to the tester. I have it gapped about the same as a plug would be. We should see some spark. Okay, I may just have to reground this somewhere better. All right, so far we've tested 6 out of 8, and so far we've got spark on all of them, but we just need to go around and make sure that we're seeing spark everywhere. All right, dude, come on. 2 more, just 2 more, we're almost done. Come on, we're almost done.
2 more?
Just 2 more, and then I'll let you play. I'll let you know when to turn it over, okay? Okay, go ahead. All right, it's good. It's good. Thank you. 1 more after this, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're still having the same result. I'm gonna start, well, let's do it like this. I'm just gonna sit you in the chair. Oop. Yeah. All right, so what's going on? We've checked spark on all 8 cylinders. We still have 3 on the passenger side, sorry, the driver's side that's not getting hot on the headers. Yet we have spark on all 8. It's probably something to do with the injectors gummed up or something, I don't know. Yeah. Transmission.
Why is it loud?
Because it's going to be a loud engine. Yeah. So I hear some bubbling going on. And we got transmission fluid coming out here. Right there. That's coming from our cooler lines. So guess what? We have to stop again, fix something else again. And that's gonna be a pain because I had to put those lines on before I lifted the transmission up. So that may be a little bit more involved. Let's see real quick if we can see that. If not, I'll probably have to move the car around. Yeah, it's wet. Wet all down the lines. So here we are stopping again. We have to address the transmission fluid leak before we can crank it. So that may be a little bit more involved, unless I can get a wrench on there and snug something up, or maybe it's a hose clamp. Maybe it's something like that. I think that would be the best thing if it was a hose clamp and not the actual A&N fitting. And then what we'll probably have to do is pull the fuel rails off. I need to go by the junkyard and get a little pigtail for the injectors. Pull them out one by one, hook a hose to the feed side, hook it to a battery so it's open, and just spray through it and see if anything's coming out. So the injectors may be gummed up on that side, or they may not be getting signal, or they may be wired incorrectly on the harness. So first things first is address the fluid, then we'll go back to the injectors, figure out what's going on there.